Welcome to the Leadership in Law podcast with host Marilyn Jenkins. Cut through the noise, get actionable insights and inspiring stories delivered straight to your ears. Your ultimate podcast for navigating the ever-changing world of law firm ownership. In each episode, we dive deep into the critical topics that matter most to you, from unlocking explosive growth to building a thriving team. We connect you with successful firm leaders and industry experts who share their proven strategies and hard-won wisdom. So, whether you're a seasoned leader or just starting your journey as a law firm owner, the Leadership in Law podcast is here to equip you with the knowledge and tools you need to build a successful and fulfilling legal practice.
Welcome to another episode of the Leadership in Law podcast. I'm your host, Marilyn Jenkins. Please join me in welcoming my guest, Simone Holloway, to the show today. Simone is an attorney by day and a storyteller by night. She serves the world by creating stories of hope and resilience. Her life aims to encourage, motivate, and inspire others to be who God envisioned at the moment of creation. From Greenville, South Carolina, Simone is a published author, speaker, and enthusiast for life. She's an associate attorney for a thriving law firm in the downtown area. She also serves the local church through the role of executive pastor, and she is passionate about teaching the Word of God. Simone is the creator and founder of Grace and Grit, an online community for women who live in the both/and. This community is a safe, inclusive environment designed to empower, encourage, and motivate women to be all they've envisioned to be, unrestrained. I'm excited to have you here, Simone. Welcome.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm excited to hear a bit more about your community and what you're doing. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got started and where you are and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, sure. And so I got started. I've always wanted to be a lawyer since I was a kid. And so I know, weird. So my whole life has almost been tailored for entering into the legal profession, right?
Wow.
So,
Okay.
youth in government in high school, I did speech and debate. I was a part of a mock trial team. I was always that girl who wanted to argue, I guess, and had teachers and mentors who helped me, guided me to, going to college, going to law school, and then entering into the profession.
Oh, fantastic. Wow. And knowing what you want to do at the early age, it's a good thing.
I guess so. Yeah, I wanted to do it since I was 7. I didn't really have the language for it. I just knew I wanted to stand up for people. That's what I would tell people when they ask, "What do you want to do for a living?" I would say, "Well, I think I want to be a lawyer. I want to stand up for people." I always tell this story because I'm originally from New York, how I thought I was going to be a New York prosecutor in an apartment in Manhattan overlooking the skyline. Like, I thought that was the dream, right? Or the life. Well, my parents destroyed my dreams by moving me to South Carolina without any input or conversation at 13. And however, I enjoy it. I'm so happy that we moved here. I love being a part of the South Carolina legal professional network. The bar is great. And so I'm just grateful to be here.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I want to talk a little bit about how you got started in building your network by basically doing things that a lot of people didn't want to do. So you
Yes.
made a name for yourself and made yourself known to the industry. Tell us about how you did that and how you got started with that.
Yeah, so before I went to law school, I actually took 2 years in between undergrad and law school. I went to Furman University, and then I just was bumming in and calling people and say, "Hey, I'll work for free. Will you let me come by your office?" Right? I know people don't like to work for free anymore. Everyone is out trying to what we call secure the bag, right? It comes with a big of time. But I've truly valued the opportunity to gain experience from people who have been in the profession for a long time and people that I knew were good at their craft. And so I did a lot of volunteer work. I was a runner. I was, a quasi paralegal before entering into law school. I learned how to draft pleadings. I learned how to call and speak to clients. I was picking up coffee. I was running by the court, to deliver documents. anything that you could think of, I was doing. Okay. And a lot of my peers, when we left school to go to law school, a lot of them wanted to get a paying internship, a paying job, right? Because the thing is, I went to this fancy undergraduate university. I went to liberal arts college for university. So yeah, we're posh, we're fancy, right? So I went to this fancy school and paid all this money in tuition. There's no way that I would freely give up time, right? And
Right.
money to do something that doesn't guarantee a return. And I think
Okay.
if anything, I would encourage people to kind of shape or change their framework of mindset regarding that because experience is invaluable. Like learn
Right.
underneath someone, whether you're seeing instant gratification in the form of a check or not, is invaluable. You learn skills. You are placed in environments with other people who are just or even greater, skilled than your peers or your mentors. You're able to be at conversations at tables that you would have never been able to be at on your own. Let's just be honest. Who's
Right.
going to invite a freshly graduated, girl from Greenville to a round table with judges and legislators and things of that nature? No one. I didn't know
Right.
I was a first generation, on the path to being a first generation lawyer. I didn't have the connection to get me into certain rooms. And so when you are a first gen and you don't have the money and you don't have the resources, you have to hustle a little bit, right? And you have to be
That's
willing to
right.
do things that other people aren't, willing to do. And so, yeah, that's what I did. I hustled. I was like, hey, you want me to get your copy? Sure. I'll go copy.
Well, I think that's absolutely groundbreaking. I mean, you're right. People want to do, clerkships and stuff like that where they get paid, where, you dove in and you're like, I'm here to learn, I'm here to get to know people. And if you enter the profession with no network, like, the people that go to, Yale and Harvard and stuff, they have a network already built in. So you didn't have that and you built that by Sweat, sweat equity, got in there and got doing it. That's fantastic. And that led to some job offers, right?
It did. So when I finished my time working for a small firm here, I went to law school. Then I got into law school, did the same thing. I was working my teal year of law school. I had a job and came from picking up the phone, calling around, responding to ads, doing all those things. I worked for an attorney at Columbia, enjoyed my time with her, doing family law practice. Did that for a few years. And then I got really involved into the community aspect of the university, the law school. So I was able to be on the pro bono board. I did some stuff through the Black Law Students Association, and that gained opportunities for me to find jobs through those networks. And so, again, getting involved, asking questions, meeting people, you just never know where opportunities will find you if you're not willing to make yourself uncomfortable. You see what I'm
True.
saying?
Yeah.
A lot of what we're looking for is outside of our comfort zone. We have to
Mhm.
search for it. We have to, go after it. And so being a part of those organizations, accepting leadership roles with those organizations, then gave me an opportunity to find a job with South Carolina Legal Services. And yes, which is awesome. I was interested in public interest law at the time. They do civil side stuff. So they do family, landlord tenant action, some of your collections issues. A lot of South Carolina Legal Services, they if you are make below a certain threshold, you can apply. And those attorneys come in via a grant and they will basically be your counsel for that action.
I see.
So
Okay.
cool. So, because of my involvement with Pro Bono Board and BOSA, I was awarded a fellowship with South Carolina Legal Services, worked with them, did everything they asked me to do, went everywhere they asked me to go,
And more, I'm sure.
or showed up on time, dressed professionally, didn't laugh because I was on a stipend, or didn't
Yeah.
half of the work because I'm sitting in a room and I'm not able to share or contribute because I'm not an attorney, right? I don't have the knowledge or the skill set to kind of prove myself in this environment. I had to do a lot of listening, a lot of just sitting in the room, a lot of taking note, things of that nature. That opened up an opportunity post law school for me to work for them again. Being
Wow,
the work
fantastic.
I did with the fellowship, they said, "Man, you're such a hard worker. You're an amazing person. You carry yourself with integrity. We have an opening. Will you come back and help us?" I was like, "Sure, I'll
Of
come back."
course.
Of course, right? You know, again, volunteering, joining organizations, meeting people, asking questions, not having to be the one that always contributes verbally in conversation, not always having to be the one that has to prove something.
So
Does
you put your ego aside and actually
exactly.
went in. I love that. And I love the fact that you carried yourself with integrity. You took it as professional, even though you, like you said, you weren't in charge, you weren't getting paid.
Mhm.
You showed your true self before you even had a job, before you even had your law degree. And you made your own network with your own integrity. I love that. And how is that obviously still serving you now with what you're doing?
It is. So I learned how to speak to clients and to get intake of information through psych and legal services. That's what I learned. And how to critically assess whether or not a case can be worthwhile within their guidelines, right?
Okay.
So now I'm in practice. My first job in the legal profession is working for a small plaintiff's firm, and I have to retain clientele. Well, good
Okay.
thing I don't have a problem talking to people because I stopped the legal services. I did intake, right?
Right.
Oh, and because I was in this community for so long, people know me. People know my name. People have, their coworkers or their family members have had an interaction with me. I'm grown up in Greenville, went to high school here. And so it's easy now for people to say, "Hey, she's a lawyer, she can help me," and for them to
Right.
come now to my office. And so my first position with a small plaintiff's firm, I did general stuff. So I did civil plaintiff's work, I did family law, I did estate planning and probate work. I also did a little criminal defense, adult and juvenile. And then I did just a small portion of business litigation, like starting up businesses, looking at contracts, things of that nature. Right.
So again, whatever needed to be done.
Whatever needs to be done. All right.
I love it.
How we make money. This is how we build, you do a good job for one client. Before you know it, they'll come back. You
Mhm.
solve one problem and they'll become clients for periods of time, for years. And they'll send,
Numbers.
you just never know. They'll send their family, they'll send their coworkers, you'll be in the grocery store and someone's like, "Man, I have an issue." And you strike up a conversation. And that's how you open the door to make sure that you're able to keep a book of business in a profession as a young lawyer. 'Cause I think law schools sometimes don't do a good job of teaching incoming, or I should say lawyers who are leaving law school and entering to the profession. They don't do a good job of teaching them how to build business,
Right.
some to go to the big firm. Well, a lot of them are not going to make it into big law. They're not.
Well, I think across the board in the US, we are
Mhm.
educating employees.
We
Right.
are.
So you had the drive early,
Mhm.
obviously, as an entrepreneur. If you want to run your own business, you have to make that happen yourself. It's just like marketing. Law school doesn't teach you that.
Mhm.
That's one of the things that I help clients with. We help you do something that you're not taught to do. So, but being able to, you know, put yourself out there and say, I'm going to learn everything I need to know so I can be the best I can be. I love that.
Mhm. And so you're exactly right. I never had a class that taught me how to speak to clients, ever. I never had a class that taught me how to balance my statements for an IOTA account. I didn't have a class about
Wow.
reconciliation, and we have to do it. We have to do a
Yeah.
part reconciliation to comply with that rule. Did not have a class. I didn't have a class about, hey, how do I draft a fee agreement and close a file? Never had that class.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
But a lot of individuals, when they leave law school and they take the bar, a lot of them join either smaller or medium-sized firms to get started and get under their belt. They have a clerkship possibly where they're assigned to a judge or they're doing something for a year or 2 years when there's on the state or federal level. A lot of people are just building their own, hanging their own shingle early because they don't have
Right.
a choice. That's what they have to do. And then another group are finding themselves being courted by the bigger establishments, as they should, because they work and they have the profile that fits what that firm desires. A new
Mhm.
estate, right?
Right.
But when you don't have certain skills, you can be in all four of those categories and not be able to sustain yourself if something goes wrong, you know?
True.
Because nothing's
True.
guaranteed. It really isn't, you know? And so what I learned from my first law position is how to build a business. This is how we retain clients. This is how we set fees. This is how we enter into fee agreements. This is how we work a file from beginning to end, right? And end is
Right.
hearing. End is the signature of the order, the mailing of that order to that client, and the letter terminating that representation. So beginning to end.
Okay.
And how do we follow up with clientele to make sure that we tell them we will have your documents for that statutory period. And if you need anything else, we'll be more than happy to, address that problem or address that issue.
And ask for a review.
And ask for a review always. Hey,
Yes.
please leave us a review. Can you please tell us, give us some feedback? How are we servicing you? What are some things we could have done better? What are some things that you liked about our interaction and things of that nature? So I learned how to really talk to a wall, paint on a wall, really. It's something. Because believe it or not, I was very shy as a child.
Okay. And wanted to be a lawyer.
I wanted to
Okay.
be a lawyer, which is insane to me, but I did. And so my mother saw that this is something I wanted to do. So early on, she placed me in environments where I had to, where I had to,
Okay.
my mother is also former military. So
Okay. There you
there
have it.
are no excuses for anything, right? And so I've always been placed in environments where I had to push myself a little bit more, right? Get out of my comfort zone. And so that's what the first position really taught me. And then now, because of the work I did with that small plaintiff's firm, I was recruited to the position that I'm at right now with a bigger firm, a larger firm.
And that's fantastic. And I'm guessing the smaller firm that you were with, you probably left them stronger than when you arrived because of the things that you did to help them grow. And then the fruits of that is you've got another opportunity. I know that you use the term servant leadership a lot, and it sounds like with what you did with the legal service and almost everything you've been doing, you've been doing that. You care to explain a bit more what you mean by that term?
Sure. So for me, servant leadership is a leader that is willing to get in the dirt with others, right? So
Right.
it's not about delegating or giving tasks to another person that you can do yourself. It's about saying, hey, let's do this together. And I know in my history of working, I've always been in a role of mentorship and I've always had the opportunity to learn how to work with different people groups. And I think that when you are a servant leader, it's less about how others aren't serving you or helping you or making things easier for you. And it's more about how can I esteem them, affirm them, and show them that they have the ability to do this, even if they don't see it themselves. I think we get the best out of our people when, like we talked about earlier, when we place our egos aside
Right.
and we get in the game with them. So it's one thing to talk about, oh, I need you to have this many hours, or I need you to be able to do this, this, and this, and another to sit with your associate and show them how you are doing it and tips and tricks to help them be able to accomplish those goals. Um,
And And I think I want to go from being servant leader and delegating,
Mhm.
figuring that they are not definitely two different things. You can be a servant leader and still delegate. You don't have to be, as you scale, as you grow, you don't have to be involved in everything. But
That's
having known that, that gives you as a servant leader a way of training and bringing other people into the process and helping grow that way and still keeping your leadership position and helping learn responsibility or teach responsibility and delegation. So I
that is
think
very
I
true.
love the way that you do that. Yeah. And sitting beside the fact that you learned intake is something that I also find that some attorneys have issues with. And maybe it is being able to talk to people, but I love that you did that and learning that through the pro bono work also gave you an opportunity to learn how to swiftly qualify or disqualify. Is that true?
That is true. That is true.
Excellent.
Yeah, because once you learn the guidelines of your firm, or you learn like what services we provide, what can we do, what's our capacity, they're able to quickly ask strategic questions to determine whether or not this client is someone that you can service. What I found, and I learned this in the first 3 or 4 months, I was having 2-hour consultation
Oh,
meet with
oh
a
no.
client. And because they were giving me their life story, and I got hung up in the details, and
Yeah.
I was like, there was a little rambling going on, and I remember, the partner that I was learning from, he pulled me aside, he said, "Why are your meetings taking so long?" And I was like, "Well, I'm not quite sure. I'm asking questions, but there's a lot of narration and a lot of storytelling happening in these meetings." He said, "Questions are you asking?" So I told him my list of questions. He said, "Okay, I see where you're going wrong." And he revised the question. And those
Nice.
2-hour meetings went down to 15 to 30 minutes because of the quality of the question. And I think this is kind of why we, as young lawyers, specifically first gen, we need to make sure we're connected to older attorneys,
Mhm.
and that we're listening to them and we're hearing their wisdom. I'm not saying that everything that the older attorneys do is the best route, or where it's coincides to where we are right now in our time, right?
Mhm.
Ever. There is a richness of wisdom when you speak to someone who's been practicing 30, 40 years that you can
Successfully.
successfully, which you can
Yes.
take and apply into your own practice, and
Wisdom to
begin
the
to
table.
practice better, exactly, into a better space.
Really, I love that. It does make a difference. There was an article, oh my gosh, maybe 6 or 8 years ago that was, I think it was 9 questions from Harvard Law on how to interview and do an intake.
Yeah.
So we took those 9 questions and made it into 12 questions that had sales closing questions to it for a few clients. And it's a great training thing, but you need to know the direct questions to ask that you go straight to the point. It's so easy, especially if you're more sympathetic than empathetic, to get involved in that story. And then you're only becoming a professional visitor at that point. You're not really closing the sale or moving forward or helping them. But that's very interesting. And what has been, as far as your mentoring and the way that you feel you're growing in your community? I know you're an executive pastor as well and run a community of women. Tell us a little bit about that and how things have progressed for you there.
Sure. So, yes, I do have an online community called Grace and Grit, and it is an inclusive community for women who believe in what I call the both and. That is, you're not limited to either or. You're not just a lawyer or a mom or this. No, you're both. You're a lawyer and a mom, or you're an artist and you enjoy running your own business. You're just a plethora of many different things. And so that community has grown over the last 2 or 3 years just by me sharing more about myself. I think people just want to feel connected to others and they want to know that they're not alone. And so I just share stories about, hey, this is what's going on in my life. How are you doing? Like I've been on this journey, for example, for the last year. And so I've been sharing and allowing the women to hold me accountable to go to the gym every day,
Okay.
right?
Right.
A young lady reached out to me and said, I've been wanting to get into fitness myself, but I've been discouraged. But you show up every single day tired, or I'll share that I'm sore or achy. And she's like, that encouraged me to get back into it. I'm like, that's awesome. I'm happy.
Nice.
You know, so that's kind of what that community is about. It's about being honest. It's about, sharing who you are and knowing that you have other women who are rallying behind. Now, my church, Open Door Ministries, is a similar inclusive environment. It's a religious organization, and it's not just for women, it's for all. My role there is that I manage operations for the ministry. And so
Okay.
I'm not a senior executive pastor or a care pastor. I handle a ministry leadership, and I make sure that the ministry leads have everything that they need for their departments to be successful. So it's a lot of checking into our inventory, checking in on our budget, checking in on, hey, service goes from 12 to 1:30. Do we have everything that we need for them? Right? For in-person service. We do virtual and in-person gatherings. So it's making sure that on the virtual space, we're good. Those who are speaking, they are connected to that platform. And then once we have our in-person service, is making sure that from the beginning to the end, every single person who's on a program or is supposed to present, they have the resources that they need to do that without a hitch. So it is very rewarding. I enjoy it. I'm a preacher's kid, so I've always been in church. That probably explains, the kind of charisma and just being involved in things very early on. Church kids are probably the most, I don't even know how I would say this, but I think they do more hobby than any other, category of children that I know. They're like in dance, they're on choir, they're doing it.
Oh, right.
So much. So when I meet a fellow church kid and they tell me about their childhood of being involved, it's 15 things. I'm like, oh, you're my people. I relate. We get it.
I love that. So, so you were taking a leadership role even in these other, organization leadership. So when you say, not knowing how to run a business, you've got all of these organizational things in mind and already ingrained in you. Do you feel that those two volunteer efforts also help you with your career?
Yes, I do. I do. I think every volunteer project or activity I have been a part of has shaped me as an individual to be more empathetic and more kind and compassionate to other people. It has made me a better lawyer because when you're able to connect with others, treat them with dignity and respect, and then argue their position before a court of law with that dignity and respect in mind, it does make you a better individual. And I think other people respond to that. People respond to civility, they respond to respect, they respond to love. They don't respond well to ego and rude behavior and, this behavior that makes them feel like you don't care about them as an individual.
Right.
You know? And I'm just something that I was talking with, I'm part of an organization where lawyers get together to protect the integrity and the civility of the law. And I was having a conversation with an older judge who's been on the bench a long time. And his concern is that attorneys in my generation and those coming up, that we have lost the importance of being kind one to another. He's very concerned that we're more focused on making money and peacocking for our clients versus being kind one to another. Because at the end of the day, your opposing counsel is still your colleague. You
That's
may
right.
be on opposite sides of the case. You may have different positions. You may have different clients to service, but you guys are still a part of the same bar, and
Right.
you have cases together again plenty of times. And if you do what I do, you see the same people all the time on the other side. You do.
Right.
And so I think, and I listened to the wisdom that he was sharing with me, and I agree. I believe that you have to be a kind person, not a pushover or anything like that, but you have to be a kind person to have longevity in this
Mhm.
work and in this field. And you become a little more kinder when you're thinking of someone else above yourself. You do.
True. That's true. Well, I think a lot of what you said here can be translated into other professions as well. But I mean, you look at the professional football field. They get out there and it's a battle, right? Well, these
Mhm.
guys, they go to camp together. They know each other. They spend time together. After the game, you can see they're not. It's not that adversity. So this has been a really great conversation. I really enjoy your kindness and everything comes through. I really enjoyed having this conversation. If you were thinking about our audience, what would you like them to have the biggest takeaway? What would be the takeaway you'd hope they have?
I guess the biggest takeaway that I hope that I have is to be willing to do anything within reason, because you just never know how taking a internship or volunteering or going to lunch, picking up the phone and having the conversation, grabbing coffee, you never know the relationships that you'll build with other individuals. You'll never know what and who they will expose you to. And you'll gain so much by saying yes than you will by automatically writing off with a no.
Fantastic. That's great advice. Great advice. Now I know the listeners will probably want to connect with you and reach out to you. Where's the best way to reach you or connect with you?
Sure. You can follow me on social media on Instagram at the Simone Holloway. That is the best way to find me. Or you can visit my website at www.simoneholloway.com.
Fantastic. Simone, thank you so much. This has been a really great show. I appreciate your time and all your advice. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for joining me today for this episode. As we wrap up, I'd love for you to do two things. First, subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. And if you find value here, I'd love it if you would rate it and review it. That really does make a difference in helping other people to discover this podcast. Second, you can connect with me on LinkedIn to keep up with what I'm currently learning and thinking about. And if you're ready to take the next step with a digital strategist to help you grow your law firm, I'd be honored to help you. Just go to lawmarketingzone.com to book a call with me. Stay tuned for our next episode next week. Until then, as always, thanks for listening to Leadership in Law Podcast, and be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss the next episode.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Leadership in Law Podcast. Remember, you're not alone on this journey. There's a whole community of law firm owners out there facing similar challenges and striving for the same success. Head over to our website at lawmarketingzone.com. From there, connect with other listeners, access valuable resources, and stay up to date on the latest episodes. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Until next time, keep leading with vision and keep growing your firm.